Joining me now is media watchdog columnist for skynews.com.au, Gerard Henderson. Gerard, welcome to the desk.
Thank you.
This week, the Shadow Attorney General, Julian Leeser, appeared on the ABC Insiders to talk about Labor's approach to Israel. But directly after the interview, David Speers, of course the host of Insiders, gave the floor to none other than Laura Tingle for a bit of a free kick against Israel. Take a look.
So you think the people who actually were responsible for the arson attack drew inspiration from the Albanese government's position? Is that your suggestion?
No, I'm not saying that, David. I'm saying that when you create an atmosphere where you delegitimise the Jewish state, you ultimately delegitimise the Jewish people and make it acceptable for people to think, oh, well, why don't I go and firebomb a synagogue?
Quickly, Laura, back on the Iran issue, Julian Leeser is still laying at least some blame on the government's at the government's feet here for creating an environment where it's acceptable to carry out attacks like this.
Yes, that was interesting. This idea that this delegitimised the state of Israel. Can we just remember what the UN resolution was in December 2024? It was calling on Israel to get out of the illegally occupied parts of Palestine, in Gaza and the West Bank. I don't know why that's delegitimising. So, you know, he's still taking a pretty hard line on this. And that's at a time when I think opinion about Israel and the state of its democracy has changed quite harshly around the world, not just in Australia, because of its actions in Gaza in particular, but also in terms of settlements in the West Bank.
Paul?
There was a fair bit of stumbling and mumbling there. I mean, if she was walking with shoes, her laces would have been undone and she would have tripped over.
Well, the three people on that panel, Paul Sakal from Nine, Samantha Maiden from News.com, both well informed. I'm not sure that Laura Tingle is all that well informed about the Middle East. Certainly that didn't indicate that she was. But the real point was that Julian Leeser gets interviewed. It was a critical interview, but it was a professional interview. And then it's thrown to Laura Tingle, who's a well-known critic of Israel, to have a go. She has a go at him, and no one else gets a chance to say anything. We don't know what the other two would have said. So that's rather unprofessional. You go on, you give up your morning, you go and talk to David Speers on Insiders, and when you're finished, he throws it to Laura Tingle, who basically says you're talking rubbish. I mean, you could stay home.
Well, I mean, it's probably a good idea in most cases when you go to deal with the ABC, which brings me to Radio National. Do you listen to Radio National very much, Gerard?
Yes, I do occasionally. I mean, I have to do these things.
Look, someone has to do it.
Yeah, they give me great copy.
That's right. Yeah, someone has to take one for the team. Yeah. But their breakfast host, Sally Sarah, spoke to reporter Melissa Clark about resettling unauthorised arrivals in Australia in Nauru. This is the deal that the federal government has done. But at the end of the discussion, Sarah criticised the Albanese government's secrecy in this matter.
When it was first announced that they were looking to Nauru to offer some long-term visas to some of this NZYQ cohort. But given we've already had months of proceedings before coming to that, and we've only getting details now, this MOU has been signed in time for the Nauruan budget, it doesn't give a great deal of hope that they're about to be hugely forthcoming with more details.
On taxpayer money, Mel.
Indeed.
Now, look, I take her point to some degree, but when the ABC could take a leaf out of their own book on that regard, couldn't they?
Yeah, well, there's a taxpayer-funded public journalist of the public broadcaster complaining that they can't get the information you want. But try getting some information from the ABC. In my media watchdog blog a couple of weeks ago, I demonstrated the man who tried to get information about why the ABC paid $400,000 to Louise Milligan to cover her personal legal costs for a defamation case. 3.5 years later, there was a final decision and he couldn't get it. It was a bit like he was after information for the F-35 fighter jets or something. I mean, the ABC, although it signed up to the Right to Know coalition, is incredibly secretive about its own material. So the idea that you'd go on the public broadcaster as a taxpayer public funded journalist and complain about being a taxpayer and not getting information is a bit much, but anyway, it's good for me.
Indeed. Very quickly before we go, while we're talking about double standards, let's hear from the SBS chief political correspondent Anna Henderson. This is what she had to say about anti-immigration protests on the ABC program Late Night Live.
A Liberal senator and someone who was commenting today around what she says is
the real concerns in part of the community. I don't think it can be denied that some of the people who participated in these protests were talking about their concerns about the pressures on things like housing and services. And what she said was that she was proud of the people who marched. And she said that despite the fact that we'd seen these images of this sort of neo-Nazi contingent.
We only have 30 seconds, Gerard, but I didn't see the same sort of treatment for the march over the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
No, well, Anna Henderson wrote about this on SBS and said that essentially that the march over the bridge was peaceful and this one wasn't. Well, there were extremists in both marches, but you can't say that the march over the bridge was peaceful when it was obviously not, with flags of Islamists and whatever else. So again, it's a double standard. On one thing you look at one thing, and one thing you look at something else. So.
Well, as they often say, if the left didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all. Gerard Henderson, thank you for joining me.